Doug, what's new?
Oh, did you get me one? Thank you. Nice, busted through there. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Cassie, are we good to go? Okay. I would call us to order this evening and welcome you here. This is the Syracuse City regular business meeting held on November 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. We welcome you to within the council chambers and grateful for the evening we have tonight to discuss the city business. I have asked Doug Peterson if he would lead us in prayer or an inspirational thought, and I've asked Jordan if he would lead us in the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this opportunity to meet as a city council. We're grateful to have our wonderful citizens and great staff here. We're grateful for the community in which we live and the freedoms which we enjoy, the people who protect us, and all the blessings we have. We pray that that would be with us as we make decisions, we have discussions, and do the city's business. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Will the audience please rise, give the proper hand salute, and pledge of allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the benefit of those of you who are unfamiliar with our procedure here in our council meetings, we will be adopting an agenda. Council, I would ask in the adoption of that agenda that we allow item number 6, the canvass and the consideration of certification of the results of the Syracuse City general election, to be on a sliding scale. Cassie is still awaiting information from the county, and we suspect that we will have it through the course of this meeting. So if we can put number 6 on a sliding scale, I'd call for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved as discussed with a sliding scale item on number 6.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Appears to be unanimous, Cassie. Thank you. At this point in our meeting, we set aside time at the beginning and we set aside a little time at the end for public comment, for comments from the citizenry at large to address the council. If you have an issue that you would like the council to hear, we would welcome you to come forward to this center rostrum that is here and approach the dais. If you'll give us your name and place of residence, and then we'll authorize up to 3 minutes of your comments to the council. Now, as a matter of procedure, we do not comment on those. We take notes and then we discuss them, and then we will put them on future agendas as they merit. So if there is something that you'd like to address the council about and from the general public, we would turn that time over to you at this time. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment until later on in the meeting. Item number 3 is the presentation of the Syracuse City and Syracuse Chamber of Commerce Awards of Excellence. Our former mayor is here, and he's the managing director of our local chamber. Mayor Palmer, would you like to come forward and make those presentations?
First off, Mayor, City Council, thank you for this opportunity to make these presentations here tonight. Director of the Syracuse City Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure to make these presentations here tonight. We have two awesome students here tonight. If we could have Brock Blue, if you would come forward, and Taisha Williams, please come forward. Now, I also want to mention here that you guys are a great school. Cook Elementary School has some of the best teachers, and at the same time they have a great administration. So we want to thank them for the opportunity and also for recommending you for this award. So this award here tonight to be presented, first we'll present to Taisha. I'm going to come over here and I will talk loud, okay? Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Taisha. Taisha exemplifies a caring and thoughtful attitude. She is kind and inclusive to everyone. She is more aware of others than the typical grade student. She truly wants everyone to feel included. Taisha cares about doing well in all her school subjects. She does her best work and encourages others to work also. Taisha participates in the whole squad, which reaches out to students in physical and emotional needs. So she goes out of herself to help out other people. And that's the kind of students that we want, because they grow up into adults that care also about others and so forth. So before I actually hand you the certificate, I want to talk about Rocky, okay? Because you guys know each other.
Yes.
Awesome. Is he kind of a good guy?
He's all right.
And you know for sure she's awesome, right?
Yes.
Cool. So Brock is very respectful and is always the first to recognize where there is a need. He is the first to jump in and help in any way possible. He is very selfless in his team and an amazing example to all. Brock is very helpful to special needs students in our class. He provides service daily without being asked. Brock takes following classes at the school and is on the competitive soccer team. He's a hard worker and puts his full effort into everything he does. Brock is a member of the student council, which provides services to our school community. He earns wonderful grades at school because of his dedication and strong efforts. So I want to present to you here a certificate from the city. Make sure I get the right one. It also has a $5 gift certificate in here that's free. I mean, it can drop out too, so don't drop it here. And to Taisha. And we're going to have the city council and mayor come down here, shake hands with you. Maybe the parents can get a picture of you with the city council and mayor. So.
Council, let's join them, shall we?
Here, we'll have you two stand in front, we'll line up behind you. There we go.
Scoot that way a little bit.
I can get out of the way.
Scoot that way just a little.
Come on in here, Trey.
Congratulations.
For the benefit of those listening in on YouTube, on other sources, and may not have heard all that was said by Mayor Palmer, you might just know that we raise kids that can walk on water. And we're so grateful. In fact, it's the best crop we've ever raised in this city. So congratulations to those young people and council. It's good to be back into the routine and school in session, and we had to wait till November to get started with this, so that's a wonderful thing. We're at item number 4, council, the approval of minutes. The minutes of work session of September 10th, 2019, work session of September 24th, 2019, the regular business meeting of October 8th, 2019, and the work session held immediately after, held on October 22nd of 2019. Any discussion of those minutes? I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Bolduc. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Peterson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Olivia, could I have you come forward? Would you mind coming forward? And before we get into these common consent, Council, I'd like to introduce you to Olivia Yarmello. It is my intent to appoint her to the Architectural Review Committee, and I know her from several other places, and she is a wonderful woman. Do you have any questions for her before we move forward? You have her resume. Anything else for her?
Just say thank you for all your time dedicated to all these different things you're doing.
Olivia is the chairman of the CTC, Communities That Care, the program that is being developed between us and Clearfield, and we're glad to have you there too. So welcome to the city and welcome to work. We're grateful that you'd accept that appointment. Thank you. So let's move on to items of common consent. Thank you again, Olivia. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our procedures, we have several items here that in former business meetings or in work sessions, we've come to unanimity in our discussion and feel to place these in as items of common consent to conserve time. The first would be the appointment of Olivia to the Architectural Review Committee. A proposed ordinance 2019-21 approving amendments to the bylaws of the Syracuse City Youth Court. Item C, proposed resolution R1948 expressing concern over potential danger of using electronic cigarettes and similar products and calling upon the state legislature to address the issue as a statewide health issue. Proposed ordinance 2019-19 amending the Syracuse City zoning map relative to property located at 1516 South, 4000 West. A minor subdivision approval of Dutch Manor subdivision located at approximately 2228 South, 1660 West. Proposed ordinance 2019-20 amending section 10.3.20F of the Syracuse Municipal Code pertaining to temporary carports. And item G, proposed resolution R1945 amending the City Council Rules of Order and procedures regarding training opportunities. Council, I'd entertain a motion to approve these items of common consent.
Mayor, I'll move that we give our approval to these 7 items on the common consent agenda.
I have a motion by Councilman Peterson. I have a second by Councilwoman Bingham. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They stand approved, Cassie. Cassie has informed me that the canvass is now in. Cassie?
Yeah, so the results of the election have been evolving. We've received a couple of updates since the polls closed last Tuesday night, November 5th at 8 p.m. There were some problems with the Davis County website getting election results posted that night, and they wanted me to communicate to the council and to the residents that they're very sorry for any inconvenience that caused to any candidate or any resident that was interested in the results of the election. But they were also very communicative and transparent with the information that they had. They were emailing out updates throughout the night, and we were able to provide those to candidates and to the city council. We were also posting live on our Facebook page with any updates. But today I am able to present the final results of the election. This includes all by-mail ballots that the county received after Election Day that were postmarked according to the law, and that were received before today, which is the final date they can be received as the canvass date. So the total number of registered voters that we have in Syracuse City is 14,132. 4,117 of those people cast a ballot, so that's a voter turnout of 29.13%. Receiving 2,605 votes, or 26% of the votes cast, was Dave Mon. Receiving 2,475 votes, or 24.73% of the votes cast, was Lisa Bingham. Receiving 2,225 votes, or 22.23%, was Seth Teague, and receiving 2,001 votes, or 19.99%, was Douglas Peterson. We did also have a valid write-in candidate, Mike Spencer. He received 594 votes, or 5.93%. I have additional information about ballots that weren't cast or weren't counted if you want that information tonight. I also have a report that breaks down votes by precinct in the city that is available for inspection after this, but I'm recommending that you certify these results as the final election results for our 2019 election.
Thank you. Corinne, would you lead us off in any discussion?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward and totally understandable why the county was having problems. And after receiving their explanation and that they're going to separate out those previous 10 years of results onto a different portion of their webpage, and I say we accept.
My only question is, usually we get that in this meeting as before we certify the details that you suggested. Just how will that go about? Because it would be different than we usually do.
Do you mean just the final canvas reports? I can print those out and make them available in hard copy for you, or I can email them to you, whatever you prefer.
I just still want to see those, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
of course.
And I think it's straightforward, and want to thank Cassie for her work sending out information to us as candidates that night. There was a lot of waiting for that website to come up, and you were great to keep us updated, so thank you so much for that.
Jordan?
No, I too would like to actually go through and look at all the different items, but as far as approving them, I think by law we have to approve them tonight. So let's go ahead and do it.
Doug?
Nothing.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we certify the results of the Syracuse City general election canvass.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous and report that to the county? Now, how many saw our brand new shiny toy out there with lights flashing when you came in?
It's not a toy.
It's a very expensive toy. It's a very expensive toy. The city was just in receipt of a new fire engine. We're grateful for that, and we're grateful for the work of Chief Aaron Byington in procuring that fire engine for us. It's been a little hard. It's been like kind of getting a fat Santa Claus down the chimney. We've had to push and shove and bend, but we didn't break, did we? But we would like to take some time this evening and recognize our chief. He is indispensable in our community in relationship to fire. So, Brody, would you come forward now that you've just sat down, and would you present the award to Chief Byington?
Chief Byington, if you could come up. So, Chief Aaron Byington, we're recognizing him tonight. He's been awarded the Utah Managing Fire Officer Designation Award. This designation, it's achieved by documenting a comprehensive body of career development classes, higher education, certification, competencies, and experience. It is my understanding that this is the highest available that you can earn from the Utah Commission on Fire Officer Designation. There are a total of 4. This is the highest, which is number 2, that's available, right? So there are 2 more being developed, and he's already expressed his interest in achieving those once they become available. I would also want to let the council know that there are only 2 people in the state that have achieved this award, and he's one of them. And We appreciate the dedication that Chief Byington has put into the profession, the service that he puts in for our residents, and the dedication and professionalism that he brings to our department. So he's combined hundreds of hours of training, education, experience to meet the requirements for this ward. And I would like, if everyone could please join me in personally thanking Chief Byington for his hard work and dedication to such a valuable program and serving members of the Syracuse Fire Department and the citizens of Syracuse. Thank you. So as part of this, Chief Byington gets to hang this in his office. Proud owner of the designation, and a pin.
Thank you very much.
Nice job. Thanks.
Aaron, take just a minute and address us, will you? Tell us what you're thinking. Sorry.
Don't get off that easy.
Hello.
Speech.
Speech. You know, this is a program that was set up several years ago by the Utah Commission. It's a fairly new program. And as you heard me in the last council meeting, we awarded the supervisory level to Captain Nance. And that's the first level. One of the things that I wanted to do when I first got here was to challenge everybody to excel and to achieve new things. And so this was one of the items that we kind of challenged everybody to do. If last council meeting I had mentioned that there was only 77 of the supervisory fire officer designation in the state, and 7 of them were out of our department. That's one of the things that you can expect out of our department from here on out, is the continued growth and the continued education to provide the best service we can to the community. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead that way.
Thank you.
So.
And what's that?
Did you have questions?
No.
Okay.
No, I just had a comment and to what you last said about the integrity of the fire department. Unsolicited, and this is the first you've heard of this, I had a home occupation applicant in the city who approached me on Saturday, sought me out, actually chased me down, and wanted to thank me for the work of our current fire marshal, Goldie, for your inspection of his home. He said, what a professional individual. So it's evident that what is being professed by our chief is true and moving forward. So council, I wanted you to be aware of that one. So congratulations, Chief. We're grateful you're here. Paul, would you like to introduce our victim advocate?
You bet. I'm happy to introduce to you Celeste Joint. She is our new advocate. We hired her at in May. I'm just going to get her presentation set up here, and she's going to give you a report on what she's been up to. As you may know, under the grant that we have with for VOCA, we need to have these presentations, so she lets you know what she's doing. And if you have any questions, of course, she'll be here to answer them.
Hello. I'm a little nervous. I have not done a presentation since, I don't know, college. But anyways, I'm Celeste Joint. I'm the new victim advocate for Syracuse and Clinton City. I started in June, June 3rd. So I'm gonna go through my numbers that I'm presenting tonight are the numbers that I started reporting at this beginning of June, so it's just from June, and I wanna say November 5th, so it's the first week of November is where I'm at. So yeah. So this is kind of what I'll be going through tonight. So I'll be giving you guys a number of victims served since June, what the victim demographics, events that I have attended since June. I haven't been working for Syracuse and Clinton very long, so I don't have a lot of stories that I can share, but I do have a good example that I'm still working with currently, but we'll get there. So numbers of victims served between June 2019 and November 2019, first week of November. We have served 144 victims. 107 were females or are females, and 33 are males. So it kind of shows the difference that I serve or I help more females than I do males, but males do pop up every once in a while. So ages of victims. Mostly they range, so 66%, they range between 25 and 59 years old. 7% are 60 and older. Between 13 and 17, it's 8%. 18 and 24 is 15%. The 3% that are not reported, either, I mean, there can be multiple reasons, but a lot of them, they just don't put it on the police report for whatever reason they forgot. It's not necessarily because they don't want us to know. And 1% is, newborns to 12 years old. I don't typically work with victims that are underage simply because DCFS are the ones who are involved, or the ones who provide resources to children. What I do in those cases is, let's say an example, a sexual assault that maybe a 5-year-old, I'll call the parents, will introduce myself, and if they have questions about what's going on with the case, if it's active, any updates, and I can help them out with that. I don't necessarily offer resources because, again, DCFS are the ones who kind of step in, and they're the ones that kind of know how to, they have more experience and they know how to work with children. Let me know if I'm speaking too fast. I kind of talk fast. I was a debater, so that's what they taught me. So types of crimes. So a little more than half since June, it's domestic violence. So we deal with a lot of DV. And these are, let me back up a little. So my numbers are both Syracuse and Clinton. It's not just Syracuse that I'm presenting, so it's both cities. So between both cities, half of my victims, they're victimized in a domestic violence situation. 6% are child sexual abuse. Again, I kind of introduce myself more to the parents. If, for instance, sometimes they let me actually speak to the victim, I kind of go based off what I'm comfortable with. So I usually go 15, 16, 17 is what I feel comfortable with, and I always ask permission. I ask mom or dad, hey, is it okay if I talk to so-and-so? And usually, for the most part, they're really good about it, so they don't mind. Adult sexual assault is 9%. Doesn't happen very often here, but every once in a while it does pop up. So it just kind of it depends. So physical assault is 6%. With physical assault and domestic violence sometimes, so when I read a police report, I kind of analyze what's going on in the situation. So for instance, it could be physical assault, but it was an assault between a sister and a brother or something. So I put it under my statistics as domestic violence. So I kind of just analyze, like, okay, this is DV because it was in a relationship or whatever, if for whatever reason the officer didn't put it as DV. So my job is to analyze the police report, and the first thing I do as a victim advocate is, okay, what kind of, every situation is different, so that's what I have to keep in mind. So every client needs different needs. Every client, they may need shelter, they may need a counselor, they may need just anything. So it just depends. So I kind of go through the police report and I'm like, okay, this client needs a counselor, this client needs shelter, and I kind of connect them to the resources based off what that client needs. So it's a lot of reading, a lot of analyzing, but like I said, it just depends on the situation. Every situation is different. Violation of protective orders, it happens. I think the 2% actually, those are the jail release agreements that have been violated. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a jail release agreement. So pretty much a jail release agreement is if the offender is arrested, then they're taken into custody, then they're not allowed to get in contact with the victim until they see the judge. So it's kind of a mini protective order. So that's how I explain it to the victims, and when they violate it, I put it under that. Theft, 2%, stalking, harassment. It happens a lot more than I thought it would, the harassment part. Identity theft, fraud. I never used to work with identity theft / fraud, so I'm kind of still learning with that section. And a lot of those situations kind of hard because we don't really have a suspect. There's a lot of people just getting scammed online or just false advertisement, and there's no suspect. So it sucks when you have to give a victim a phone call and be like, there's really nothing we can do, I'm sorry. So But sometimes it makes them feel better when they get a call from a victim advocate and they know someone cares, that their money got stolen or whatever. And if anything happens in the future, then they know who to call for answers. So services provided. So information and referrals. So I got these numbers off we use VS Tracking. It's just a software where I enter all my numbers depending on the client. So information about criminal justice process, I helped 204 times. So that meaning just giving them information about how the CJ system works, or just the process and everything, helping them understand how everything works, breaking it down for them. Information about victim rights and how to obtain notification is, hey, you can give me a call if you have any questions about your case or if you need any updates. So I did that 142 times. Referral to other victim services and referral to other services, support and resources. So 83 times and 78 times. So with those two, every victim advocate does it differently. They all work differently. They all have kind of their own system. So the way I get these numbers is if I refer them to Safe Harbor. So Safe Harbor is our non-profit organization where if they need a protective order, then that's where I refer them to. Hey, they can make the process easier. They can go to court with you. They have pro bono attorneys that can help you obtain that protective order. So it's referring them to that, or any resources in the community that may be able to help them out. Emotional support and safety services. So crisis intervention in person includes safety planning. So I do a lot of safety planning, and I did that 137 times since June. That may include, hey, how are you with safety? And you have to keep in mind, you have to build a relationship with this individual before they're gonna open up with you. So they're not gonna sometimes they're not honest, sometimes, 3 weeks later they feel more comfortable telling me the truth. It just depends. You just have to be very patient with the clients. So it's like, hey, how are you doing with safety-wise? Oh, I don't feel okay. I think I need a protective order. Okay, this is what you should do. This is the next step. So I kind of have to go with the flow with them to make them feel comfortable about what the whole criminal justice system, because we all know it can be a little intimidating, even for me when I'm, something always new popping up. Individual advocacy, 149 times. The way I got that number is every time I call Safe Harbor for a victim and ask them a question about a certain case or about a certain individual, that counts as individual advocacy. I'm doing it for that client. Or if I'm talking to the city prosecutor about a case, that counts as individual advocacy. I'm stepping in, I'm advocating for that person. Hey, what's going on with this case? Can you give me an update? My client is wondering what's going on. So that's what individual advocacy is. Law enforcement interview. I did that 6 times. This one, before I sit in an interview, I always ask my client, hey, is it okay if I sit in there with you? I don't do a lot of talking. I'm just there more for emotional support. So it just depends. Like for DV, I use a lot the example in a domestic violence relationship, and I keep saying female because, typically it's a female who's the one who's a victim in a domestic violence situation. But when they're being interviewed by an officer, the officer is the alpha. So they're not gonna wanna talk. They're gonna feel uncomfortable. They're gonna be scared because, it's the officer. They have a completely stranger asking, hey, what's going on? Like, what happened? Give me all the details. So I'm kind of there to push them, especially if it's a female. A female and a female can kind of feel more comfortable when the officer's a male. So you just kind of have to just be there for support and maybe hold their hand. If they want, if the client wants you to hold their hand, then you hold their hand. I just sat in an interview not too long ago. My client, she had a lot of anxiety, so I just held her hand. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, if you don't know, you don't have to answer that question. If you don't want to answer that question, you don't have to. This is based off what you want and what you feel comfortable saying. So I'm advocating for that person. I'm there to emotionally support them. And if, it has never happened here in Syracuse or in Clinton. I hope it never does. Like, the officers are great. But let's say the officer does something uncomfortable, then I can step up and hey, leave my victim alone. I think she needs a break. So it's a lot of just emotional support. So criminal, civil justice system assistance. Notification of criminal justice events, 171 times. I got this number so I sent letters out letting them know, hey, the defendant has an arraignment hearing November 4th at noon. So that's how I notify what's going on. The victim impact statement, I did that 49 times. So I came from Salt Lake City Police, so we never dealt with victim impact statements, so I'm kind of getting used to the whole thing. Like, I'm still learning a lot. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And it's actually really awesome. So I did that 49 times. Prosecution interview advocacy, I did that 96 times. That's me communicating with Mr. Roberts, kind of just sitting down, talking about cases, or if they need to set up a meeting with the city prosecutor, it's easier for them to go through me than go through the city prosecutor, simply because the city prosecutor is busy. He has a lot of work, you know, so it's easier for them to kind of get through the prosecutor through me, and it makes it a lot easier for the victim too, so they don't feel like they're being ignored, when in reality they're not being ignored. It's just the city prosecutor has a lot going on. So I do that with both Syracuse and Clinton. Other services, so CVR information and assistance. I'll explain a little bit about CVR in the next slide or so, but I did that 48 times, and I explained what CVR is and how it works. I did that 48. Here in Syracuse and Clinton, we don't use CVR as much comparing to where my first job as a victim advocate in Salt Lake, simply because Salt Lake, we have more low-income families, whereas Syracuse and Clinton, we're more middle class, so we don't have a lot of people who need a lot of shelter, but it does come up 48 times, as we can see. So it does come up, so it's important to still offer that option and still let them know that they have that option in case it's needed. Police officer communication, I did that 74 times. That's just communicating with the officer. Emails, so Syracuse is really good at that. Every Monday morning I'll come in the office and I'll have 3-4 emails saying, hey, will you get in contact with this victim? It was DV, and then I get in contact. So those are the cases I take as a priority, because the officers obviously needed to let me know, hey, I need to get in contact with this victim. So that's my main priority, get to those victims first. Protective orders, 57 times is me explaining it, how to obtain one, how it works, where to get one, and all that fun stuff. So these are the flyers that I hand out. I mail these out to my clients. I go back and forth between the word clients and victims. It just depends. Sometimes a lot of people don't like to be known as victims, so I use the word clients, so they feel a little more comfortable. So these are my flyers. I hand those out quite a lot. It just kind of summarizes what I do as a victim advocate, their rights. I mean, that's just a little small portion of what our victim rights are. And then we have some phone numbers, and then my phone number as well on there. Oops, was there another one? So this is a CVR application. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the CVR application, Crime Victims Reparation. But so this is the application that they can help with. Oh, sorry, I had notes. So they can help with several things, actually. So number one, they have to be listed as a victim in the police report. Number two, they have to cooperate with the investigation. It doesn't necessarily mean if there weren't charges filed, then they're not going to get declined by CVR. But if they were, then if the officer calls the victim, they have to make sure they're returning the calls, or they're answering the phone calls, or they're answering the questions. And it's okay, you know, I tell them it's okay to say I don't know. You know, you don't have to have an answer as long as they're cooperating with the investigation. So that's the three things that they really need from CVR. But they can help with relocation and related expenses. So again, let's go back to a good example for DV, domestic violence, is if they're running away from the offender and they want to relocate to California, but they don't have the money. So CVR, they can give up to $1,000 to relocate. They can help pay for a U-Haul if you need a U-Haul to relocate to California. So it's a really helpful program that can help with that. They can help with medical care. So if they don't have health insurance and they ended up at the ER, So they'll help with that. So we got to treat CVR as an insurance company. The hospital will bill them directly, and they're the ones that are going to pay the hospital for all the medical expenses related to the crime that was committed. Dental care, you know, if their tooth was broken, then they can help pay for that as well. Loss of earnings due to crime. So if they have to come to court and they had to miss work, they can help pay for that as well, because, you know, it's affecting their life, so they can help pay for that. Mental health counseling. So this is the one where a lot of victims will use, you know, they need counseling, they don't have health insurance, and they can step in and they can pay for everything. Replacement of services lost. Replacement of door locks and windows. So they can replace your doors if the offender broke the door. They can come in and fix the door. It is a 30-day process, so sometimes they do have to pay out of pocket, and then once they are accepted, then CVR will refund them back the money. If for, you know, sometimes we have situations where they can't do it right off the bat, so then we can kind of find another route. So if that situation comes and I have to make phone calls, hey, can you do that? So that's when it's kind of nice to have your to know your other victim advocates, Clearfield City, Layton, like, hey, I'm not sure, you know, like, I'm new to Davis County, what do I do? So everyone's very helpful. They've been wonderful about everything. But yeah, so that's what CVR does, 30-day application. And one thing I always tell my victims, it is not a for sure thing. So never promise anything to a victim, never, because you don't know what's gonna happen. So, and I don't wanna disappoint them and let them down if for whatever reason they decline the CVR application. So this is the CVR application. Events that I attended: Syracuse Heritage Days, Syracuse Department Night Against Crime, and the Fire Department Annual Fire Prevention Open House. They were all really fun. Syracuse Days, it was so hot. I was melting, but it was really fun. So I'm still kind of, for next year, I'm thinking about maybe doing something more fun, because it's kind of boring when kids, you know, they walk by my little booth and all they see is flyers. They're like, oh, this is not fun. So, and a lot of times mom want to ask questions, or parents just want to ask questions like, oh, what do you do? Or like, hey, I have this situation, what can I do? So I've been actually talking to Paul about maybe like, hey, let's buy spin the wheel, where the kid can maybe entertain himself while I'm talking to mom over here about like, oh, you want a protective order, this is what you can do. So I've been thinking about something like that. I wish I had that for those 3 days, and I'm like, man, this is really boring. I should really do something about it. But next year is the new year, so we'll figure something out. But yeah. So my survivor story, again, I haven't been working here very long, so I don't have quite a successful one, but I'm hoping this one will go in the right direction. So this is a voyeurism case that occurred this year. There are 2 female victims. Case is still active, so I can't really say much. I am still working very closely with the victims, and we talk on a weekly basis. So when everything occurred, one of the victims, she was having a really hard time. She got very depressed. She wasn't talking. Every time I would call her, she would cry. She would cry, cry, and cry. And I would just let her talk. You just let her vent. That's a lot of my job. You just gotta let them vent, because sometimes they don't have anyone else to talk to, and they just have you. So I built this relationship with this victim it happened, if I remember correctly, it might have happened like on a Friday, and I gave her a call on a Monday. And I've been working with her since that Monday. And she calls me, she asks me questions. Maybe, I wanna say maybe a month ago, when someone is impacted by trauma, they're going through a lot, you can give them all this information, but they're not processing anything. So sometimes you just have to repeat yourself a lot. So I have offered a lot of resources. I'm like, here, you can go here. I'm like, maybe you need some counseling. Like, I know I do, but I just can't get myself to get out of my bed. So it's understandable. And I'm like, okay. So I'm just being patient with her. And then one day I get a phone call from a victim advocate from a different city. And she's like, hey, did you refer so-and-so to me? And I'm like, oh, she gave you a call? I was so surprised because I had no idea. I'm like, oh, wow. So it made me really happy because she's actually doing something about it. She actually was able to, you know, come out a little bit out of that depression and be like, I got to do something about this. So she called the other victim advocate for the housing grant program. So that's another really cool grant that we just received. 3 organizations have it. So Safe Harbor, Layton City, and Clearfield City are the ones who have it. So the housing grant program started back in September. I want to say September 16th. So, and that's if you guys want to share it, we can all spread it out. It's actually really nice. So the grant it helps victims who need housing and they don't know how to start over. So I'm like, I don't have the money, I can't get my own apartment, so I can't leave the offender because I rely on that person. They're the ones who pay the bills, they're the ones who feed me, so they don't want to leave this person because they just don't have the money. So then this program can help pay for rent. They can help pay anything that is they can be really creative. Anything that is attached to your housing stability, is that how you say it? So let's say your car breaks down. Oh, I can't go to work because my car broke down. Oh, well, if I don't go to work, I can't pay my rent. So then they can step in and help you pay for your car that has broken down. They can help pay for daycare because, well, if you don't have daycare, then you can go to work. So they can help with that. So they get really creative about everything, and it's a really, really neat program. I didn't think I was actually gonna refer a lot of my clients to that victim advocate, but I have. And they are wonderful. They are all very happy. I want to say I've had 4 successful ones with that grant. So it's a really neat grant. I love it. I really do, and I work very closely with that advocate as well. Clearfield City is allowed to work with anybody. So anybody who lives in Davis County. Doesn't matter what type of crime, what type of victimization you have been through, doesn't matter where you live. As long as the crime was committed in Davis County, they can step in and help you out. Let's say the crime was committed here, but they live in Logan. Well, they can still help that victim out because the crime was committed in Davis County. Safe Harbor is only allowed to work with domestic violence and sexual assault victims. And Layton is only Layton residents. So I always go to Clearfield. So I got a little sidetracked with that. But yeah, my client did call and I was really excited about that. I'm like, oh my goodness, she's doing something. And then I spoke to her a few days after that and she sounded a lot happier as well. She's like, yeah, I need to apply for CVR because I need mental health counseling. I'm like, great. So I mailed a CVR application to her. But yeah, there's still a lot of work. I mean, like I said, it's still an active case. I typically, voyeurism is a felony, so I don't work with cases that are at a felony level, but because I have built a relationship with this victim, with this individual, and I've been with her since pretty much day one, a lot of these victims feel more comfortable with the first victim advocate than a new victim advocate stepping in the middle of everything. So I explained that to my client, and she's like, I'm not gonna work with you anymore. I'm like, no. I'm like, you wanna work with me? I'll be here every step of the way. That's totally okay. I just gotta communicate this to the DA's advocates. But that's pretty much where we're at with that story, and let's just hope everything turns out good, and then we'll just go from there. But yeah, that's kind of that. So do you guys have any questions?
Doug, do you want to lead us out?
No questions, but thank you for the great work you're doing.
Thanks.
Jordan, do you have anything for her?
Same. We're grateful to have you here and grateful for the time you put in to help these people out, because this is probably their worst day of their life. And to have you there kind of holding their hand and just being by their sides, it means a lot to them and to us.
Lisa?
Yes, I want to thank you too. And there is so much trauma. Like you said, they don't process things, and it's so nice to have a clear head and somebody who's familiar with the system. Do you have any idea what your breakdown is between Clinton and Syracuse? With the combined statistics, do we have more or less? Can you give me a general idea?
Honestly, it depends. So some days I come in and there's a lot of DPs in Syracuse, and other days there's a lot in Clinton. I don't really know the exact numbers. Right now I feel like Clinton numbers are a little higher than Syracuse, but it just depends. You just never know when a crime's gonna happen, so you just kind of, like over the weekend, I was coming up like, I thought I was gonna be excited for a long weekend, because every time I come home, I come to work, after a long weekend, I have like a lot of cases I have to go through, but it wasn't that bad. So it's just, you just never know.
Okay.
You never know.
Thank you.
So over the last 2 years, it was 51% Syracuse, 49% Clinton. So
Okay.
I had to crunch the
About
numbers
half and
last year.
half. Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think everything's been said.
Just want to say thank you really quick. My daughter last year experienced some harassment, and we had to go through with, we use the services of the other previous victim advocates. So I really appreciate what you do, and it was a great consolation to her that she had that person she could call. So thank you.
Thank you. I personally would like to thank you too, because I field a lot of telephone calls and I've sent 2 or 3 of them your way. So thank you very much for all you do.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Steve, could you lead us through the budget? Council, we're ready to hear the auditor's report on the last fiscal year.
All right, I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'm actually going to turn it over to Steve Rowley with Kennington Christensen. He is the audit partner there. Just wanted to say that every year we have 6 months to get this audit report done, which is the end of December, so we are ahead of schedule. Overall, I think it was a good audit, but I'm going to turn it over to Steve and he'll go through the details with you.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Stephen Rowley. I was the engagement partner over Syracuse City's audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. Steve is correct. It was a good audit. It went very smoothly. I am here to present to you how the audit went. Question related to the financial statements, things like that, that's a Steve question. How the audit went, that's a this Steve question. So. So my responsibility is to report to you governance. As members of the City Council and the Mayor, you're responsible for governing the city, and that includes the finances of the city. So everything that has to deal with the money coming in and going out of the city, how payroll is done, and how everything is reported, either internally or externally, that's basically overseen by you. Now on a day-to-day basis, you've hired some great people to do that. Steve and the rest of the accounting staff, Brody is city, everybody else that takes part of all aspects of accounting, they're here on a daily basis doing that. Your responsibility as governance is to make sure that there are controls in place to help make sure that that information gets recorded and reported properly and accurately. So, and every year as a city, as a governmental entity, you're required to undergo a financial statement audit every year, and like Steve said, it's due within 6 months after your fiscal year end. And just because you get an audit, that does not relieve you of your responsibility to ensure that there are controls in place. So I encourage you to continue having those discussions and making improvements. We read through all the minutes of city council meetings and everything, and we see how much you do care about the accurate financial reporting and how accurate things are done here, and we commend you for that. We like to see that as auditors, and I know the public likes to see that as well. They like to see people that care about how the money is spent here in your city. Our responsibility as auditors is to come in and plan and perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards. So as part of that, we look over the internal controls of the entity to determine the scope of our testing. We do sample-based testing. We compare information to third-party confirmations, other supporting documentation to help determine whether the financial statements are materially correct. So that is our responsibility. And so we can jump right into the audit opinion. We'll just glance over these. This is not your first time looking over an audit report, but there are some things that I like to point out. So page 6 is where the independent auditor's report is. And the first part of this report basically just covers what management is responsible for and what the auditor is responsible for. So management, as we know, is responsible for preparing the financial statements for the underlying financial information. We're responsible to audit that in accordance with the standards. And then our opinion is at the bottom there. It says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the City of Syracuse, Utah, as of June 30th, 2019, and the respective changes in financial position and, where applicable, cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. In short, that is an unmodified opinion. That is a clean opinion. So the financial statements presented here are materially correct. That is our opinion. So turning over the page 7, this discusses a few other things in relation to the financial statements. So the first section talks about required supplementary information. Listed in there are things like the budgetary comparison schedules and the retirement funding schedules that are in the back of the report. Additionally, the management's discussion and analysis is a required supplementary information. It is not specifically audited, however, it is compared and reconciled to the underlying financial information, and so our opinion is in relation to that as a whole. But we do know that it does reconcile back to, and in fact, the Utah retirement information is confirmed directly by them, which is extremely helpful. But that is what the Government Accounting Standards Board deems to be relevant and useful to readers of the financials to have that additional information. So I recommend reading through that in your spare time, or if you have additional questions or concerns about the retirements, funding schedules, how the city's doing overall. You can see that in the management's discussion and analysis. It summarizes the activity of the city in a much shorter and much easily digestible amount, as opposed to just looking at tables of numbers. So I recommend reading that as council members, and for any of the public that is interested in seeing how the city operated compared to last year. It's very useful information. And that is prepared by management. So that's something that Steve puts together, and he tries to make it as clear and as useful as possible to anybody who's concerned. So additional information here, in the state of Utah, every governmental entity is required to undergo an audit in accordance with government auditing standards. It's kind of a step up from generally accepted auditing standards. And included with that, we'll jump into that report now because that references us back. Clear at the very back, page 104, is our report in accordance with government auditing standards. For your information, what we look at this report and what this report is telling us is we're looking at the internal controls of the city to determine the scope and extent of our testing. We do not test those to the point where we give an opinion on the internal controls, or would communicate any deficiencies or weaknesses in those internal controls related to financial reporting. And as it says at the end of this report, or at the bottom of that section, it does say we did not identify any weaknesses in the financial reporting of the city. So that is great. We did not identify anything that would materially impact the financial statements. So that is as clean as a report as you can get on that. The next section is compliance and other matters. Government auditing standards also require that we look over compliance with regulations, laws, grant agreements, things like that, that if there were any violations would have a material impact on the financial statements. And we did test instances of compliance, and there were no instances of non-compliance that would have a material impact. So we did not identify anything that needs to be reported here. So again, that's as clean as you can get there, so that's great. It's quite rare to see that in a lot of governmental entities. There are smaller governmental entities that don't do quite as well. So we appreciate your diligence in ensuring that you play by the rules. So the next report, we'll just jump over while we're here, page 106. This is a report that's required by the state auditor's office. They put out a compliance guide every year, and every governmental entity is required to undergo testing related to this. This is very similar to the government auditing standards report in terms of in this case, we're looking at internal controls over compliance requirements. So about a third of the way down the page, there's an indented list of items, for example, budgetary compliance, fund balance, justice courts, etc. In relation to those, we test the internal controls over compliance in those areas. Not to the point where we give an opinion on those internal controls, but to determine the extent of testing of compliance related to that. And additionally, we do test compliance related to that. So as we tested those areas, we looked over the internal controls, and our opinion is at the bottom of page 106 on that, on the compliance testing performed. It says, in our opinion, the city of Syracuse complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements referred to above for the year ended June 30th, 2019. So we did not identify any significant violations of state compliance requirements. None of those had any material impact on the financial statements. As we did go through the internal controls and tested compliance, there were a couple instances of non-compliance that were noted. And those are listed on the back, on the very last page is the schedule of findings. 2 instances of non-compliance, one related to impact fees and one related to the Open and Public Meetings Act. And honestly, the state compliance findings are quite common, regardless of the size of the city. And the findings there are on the back. Feel free to read through that, and we have the city's responses down below. And in fact, the one related to the impact fees, I believe in talking with Steve, that's going to be basically resolved this evening.
Yes,
So,
it's an agenda item this evening.
yep. So that's excellent. You guys, I really appreciate your willingness to move forward and make sure things are done right. We've enjoyed working with Steve in relation to that. A couple other things related to the audit. We did not have any disagreements with management. We didn't have any difficulties during the audit. Everybody was more than happy to respond and reply with whatever information we requested. They didn't withhold any information from us. And in fact, we do receive a representation letter from management that basically discusses that they gave us free reign of whatever we needed, and we're more than happy to provide that. And we're always appreciative to come to Syracuse to audit because they are very well prepared here, and we appreciate that. And that is our report. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Steve. Jordan, let's begin with you.
No comments. I think that, well, I guess I do have a comment. I'm going to say something. I do want to say kudos to Steve for putting all this together. I know this is quite a bit of work to prepare for this audit, and it's always good to hear from an outside source that you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Jordan. Lisa?
I agree. Thank you so much, Steve, our Steve and this Steve. I appreciate both of your work with this. And as I read through everything, there was so much to see, but I was really grateful at the end that we responded so quickly and they weren't big issues and that it was already being resolved or was going to be in the future. So I just appreciate working with so many people with such great integrity.
David?
I mentioned to Steve before the meeting that it's almost becoming routine that we get a great report on the work that he's doing. This, much like the work that we do out at the sewer board, is an area where we want everything to come out clean. And in fact, the fact that it's not noticed is what we are excited about. So yeah, definitely another area that we don't want to be noted for anything. We just love the fact that everything is clean and well done. So kudos to Steve, and I don't want it to be missed that we do appreciate that everything is run so well.
Thank you, David. Again.
Just want to say that if finances in a city are not well run, nothing else works. So good job, Steve. Thank you. And thank you for your report.
Doug?
Yeah, another awesome year for Mr. Marshall. And also, I know that it's not just him. There's a lot of staff that goes into this, and so I appreciate all that all of you do.
Thank you. Cassie, just a point of order. Do we need to accept the report? No. Accept it. All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. We have 3 items that are going to involve public hearing. Might explain how that will proceed, each of those. In public hearing, we would ask you just to address the issues of that moment that we're discussing. Anytime we deal with money and the spending of your money, we need to bring it to the general public for discussion. The first one that we have this evening is a discussion of eminent domain in the acquisition of land. Paul, would you give us an update on what this is and before I open public hearing?
Yes, so this is related to the Bluff Road, Gentile Road expansion, including the roundabout that's going to be installed there. This involves some property just directly south of Gentile, some of it directly impacted by the roundabout and then otherwise by the widening of Gentile. This is one where we've been in talks with the property owners for some time. Those are continuing. I just talked to their attorney a couple hours ago today. Things are still looking good. We're still negotiating in good faith. But with the holidays and everything, we thought it'd be wise to just get your approval to file should the need arise. I'm still hopeful that we're going to resolve this amicably. The property owners are here today, and it sounds like I don't know if they're going to participate, but certainly they have the opportunity to be heard and to let you know what their thoughts are on the taking here. But ultimately, it's a widening. It's not going to eliminate the parcel or require the removal of any homes or things, but there is, of course, an impact whenever you take property. Like I said, we're hopeful that we're going to resolve this without litigation.
But should the need arise, it'd be good to have the approval from the council.
Thank you. Again, for the public's benefit, this is involving the widening of the Bluff Road and the creation of a roundabout at Gentile and Bluff Road. If you have an opinion on this and would like to express it to the council, we would now open this for public comment. We'll ask you to state your name and place of residence, and we'd ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. We're now in public hearing. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Council, Lisa, do you want to lead us out here?
Yes, I think that going forward in good faith is great, and I'm grateful that that's where we stand with them and that it looks like it's going to resolve itself amicably and without any issues. I think our staff is wise to prepare for what might come, and so I agree with what we've got, with what we're discussing about eminent domain, just in case.
Jordan, do you want to add to that?
Comments?
Okay, Doug?
I can agree with that Lisa said.
Okay, Corinne?
It's pretty straightforward, thank you.
David? Nothing? Okay.
It's necessary.
We have a resolution before us. Council, I'd entertain a motion.
Make
I
a motion
move.
that we approve Resolution 19-49, approving the use of eminent domain should it be necessary.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilwoman Bingham. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record the unanimous? Thank you. We also will be entering into a public hearing discussing the finding that was mentioned in the audit report concerning impact fees. And before we open that public hearing, Brian, do you want to bring us up to date on what is involved there? Brian is our engineer, our city engineer.
Yeah, so this is basically just a simple update to our IFA. Basically changing 3 things. One, we've removed all the projects that we've completed on there. We've updated costs. We've had some pretty high inflation rates lately on construction costs, so we've went ahead and updated those. And then we also pulled forward all the projects into our 10-year plan based on where development's happening, along with some grant funding that we have received.
Okay, thank you. So that the public understands that when a new home is built, that home has impacts on the city, and the building permit that is issued for that site improvement is assessed some impact fees, and they have to be according to a study and a plan. So this is just updating that study and that plan. Now, to change this requires a public hearing. I now declare that we're in public hearing. If you'd like to address this issue, we'd invite you to come forward, state your name and place of residence, and would ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Corinne, do you want to begin this one?
Again, this is pretty straightforward, but I do want to say that this is very timely, and thank you for assessing those inflations, because it makes a big difference in making sure we're being appropriate with the impact. Thank you.
Okay. David?
Nope.
Nothing? Okay. Lisa?
Nothing either.
Jordan?
No.
Doug?
Nothing further.
Okay. All right. Council, we have an ordinance change before us, proposed ordinance 2019. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt proposed ordinance 2019-20, amending the transportation impact fee analysis and facilities plan. And is this, can I make this motion all in one?
Yes.
And proposed resolution R1947 for the consolidated fee schedule.
I have a motion before us. Have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Bullock. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? We have one more public hearing. Steve, we want to do a budget opening?
We talked about this last council meeting, so I'm going to be pretty brief. But this is one of our main budget openings we do each year. Do some carryover for our capital projects. They don't usually end by June 30th, so the majority of this is just for that carryover. And you can see there in the packet, there's a list of the original budget along with the amended items. I'm not going to go through them line by line. If you have any questions, let me know. There were two changes that I added from our last discussion, just as add-ons. The first one is the county portion of the parking lot repairs. So they are reimbursing us a third of the cost for this parking lot we just did by the library. We have to show that money coming in and the expending back out. So that is a wash. And then we also had a grant for our park maintenance fund. I believe it's from Dominion Energy for just over $2,000. We're purchasing some trees for an Eagle Scout project, so we'll be spending that money on trees. Everything else did stay the same in here, and I will just take any questions that you may have.
Let me open this to public hearing first, and then we'll come to the council for their questions. Anytime we spend money, we need to bring that to the citizenry. Now declare that we're in public hearing to consider Resolution 1950 opening the city budget. If you'd come forward and state your name and place of residence, we'd love to hear from you. Hearing and seeing nothing, I will close public hearing. Dave, would you want to lead us on this?
I appreciate your brevity. We have talked about this at great length, and this is all just more housekeeping, so I'm going to leave it at that. And unless anybody else has any comments, I would go ahead and make a motion.
Any other comments, council?
No.
No.
I entertain that motion, Dave.
I would make a motion that we approve Resolution 19-50, adjusting the city budget as discussed.
Have a second? Second by Councilman Mon, or Councilman Peterson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Proposed Resolution R 1951, communicating the intent of the City Council to adjust the common boundary between Clearfield City and Syracuse City. Brody, would you take this one?
Sure. So by law, there's a process we need to go through in order to adjust the municipal boundary with Clearfield City. As you know, based on previous discussions and work sessions, this is related to the cemetery expansion property. With Clearfield, following our discussion at the previous meeting, and they were amenable to the adjusted line to kind of follow the road out to 1000 West. So that is the proposal right now. This resolution does two things. It declares our intent to adjust our common boundary, and Clearfield will have to do the same thing, and I believe they are scheduled tonight to do that in their city council meeting. The second thing it does is it directs the mayor to ensure that that the staff sends out a notice of hearing. So in January, we'll actually have the hearing where the boundary will actually be adjusted. So this is just a notice of intent.
So council, this is a resolution to identify our intent to change that boundary. Councilman Peterson, would you like to begin our discussion on this one?
I don't feel that it needs any more discussion, at least for me, beyond what we've had.
Okay. Corinne?
I'm just grateful to see we're moving forward and grateful that they agreed. So,
Okay. David?
This is the better option as we discussed, and I'm happy that they agreed with that.
Okay. Lisa?
Nothing to add.
Jordan?
It's nice to be able to control your own destiny.
Good. Council, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion that we approve Resolution 19-51.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? As we mentioned earlier in the meeting, we hold some time at the beginning of each public meeting for comments from the public. If something has stirred your curiosity, if you'd like to address the council on any topic that is not on a current agenda, we'd entertain that, offer you that opportunity at this time. If you'd come forward, state your name and place of residence. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Let's talk about mayor and council announcements. Lisa, can we begin down there with you, and we'll come this way?
Sure. I don't have any announcements right now. It's been a busy and yet a quiet 3 weeks. So I'd like to congratulate those who have been elected for next year, and thank all those who ran. It's always impressive to see people who are willing to serve in any capacity. looking forward to working with as well. Olivia, I look forward to working with you. Just appreciate all of the work that was done on the campaign as well. As I said, with Cassie, there was a lot of communication back and forth that she was responsible for when we weren't able to check ourselves. So nothing to with Communities That Care or Chamber right now. We'll have a meeting next week, and then there's nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you, Lisa and David.
I would note that we had a long set of meetings Saturday with the sewer board about 10-year and 5-year planning. I feel, as I said in an email, very good about the fact that we've projected a way to do this without tax increases, considering some of the substantial costs that are coming our way. If there's any questions about that, feel free to ask. We will be approving next year's budget on Thursday. The Arts Council, I've given you an update on where things are there. Please mark your calendars for December 2nd. There will be a free concert at Syracuse High involving many of the Arts Council organizations, and I look forward to that. That's all.
Thank you, Dave. Corinne?
First of all, I just wanted to say I attended the open house for the library for elected officials, and that building is gorgeous. And I'm very excited to be blessed with that in our community, whereas like some of our neighboring communities, it blesses them too, but this is in our backyard. It's a wonderful thing. And then also mosquito abatement's on Thursday, so I will write a report for you when that is finished. But we don't expect many changes there. Kill mosquitoes. Go. Okay.
Doug?
Met with the museum board today, and I just wanted to bring up three things, and then I'll follow up with Brody and applicable staff on some of these. First of all, they reported out on the night at the museum, which had over 200 people come to it, which I went to that night, and then over to the Pumpkin Walk and stood at our regional park booth, and there was more people at the night of the museum. They benefited from a cold night, I think, and so people came to the museum. But what a good start to some of the things that they want to do there. The next event will be a winter festival in January, which they're planning currently. Also, they were very grateful to be part of the fire open house. They thought that was outstanding. They loved being there, and they were very grateful to the chief for donating a helmet that was previously used by you, I think, if I understand right. Oh, I don't know. That's what they thought, so we'll go with it. Yeah. Then two things that I'll follow up on, but they're concerned about lighting there, and they have lights on the building. They're controlled by a switch. I don't know that there's any lights in the parking lot, so especially in the winter now when it gets dark earlier, they're concerned with the lighting, and so I just want to follow up on that with you guys and make sure if it's a timer we need, if it's another light, I don't know. And then they were approached, and I think Brody is aware of this as well, by UDOT, that UDOT could help them with historical preservation. And we have right here in Chapter 3 of our code, a Historic Preservation Commission. Now, I don't know if that exists. I never remember appointing anybody to it, and maybe the answer is just to task the museum board with being this commission. But they are willing to do that, and they're willing to go to some of the work it might take with the help of a grant, apparently, that has been received by UDOT to mark certain homes and buildings in our city as historical properties. So I want to follow up on that as well. In December, I am involved in a show, a production, and my nights are Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So when we end tonight, this will be my last official city council meeting. So I want to say thank you to this council, which has been probably the best that I've worked on in 10 years. It's been enjoyable. This mayor as well. Thank you to the staff who've made my experience awesome. And I'm not but done being involved in the city that I've been in all my life. I already volunteered today that if they'd have me, I'd stay on the museum board as a resident and put some volunteer hours in at the museum now that I have more time to spend. So I'm excited for that. And when you need somebody, Mayor, on the Parks Committee, I'll apply. And maybe someday when I have the time to devote to be as good of a mayor as Mike Gailey, I'll run for mayor too. But for right now, I'm excited to move on, and I thank all of you for the wonderful experiences, especially the last 2 years.
Thank you, Doug.
I'd just like to comment that we're not through with you yet, and you're not through, so hang on.
No, I'll be here for another month and a couple months to do whatever I need to do.
Jordan?
Okay, I too wanted to thank the Parks Department for pulling off an amazing pumpkin walk. As always, the pumpkins were amazing. I've never seen, most people don't go out and take pictures of pumpkins, but in Syracuse they do because of the amazing people we have carving those. Thank you. There was over 1,000 pumpkins, and it was just a great activity. I love going out there, seeing them. We also had the opportunity, as has been mentioned, to meet with various community members about our regional park. That was exciting. There was a lot of excitement. I don't think I heard a single negative comment about the possibility of having this park in our community in the not too distant future. So more on that will be coming. I also want to just put out there, you'll be seeing this in the Syracuse Magazine about our upcoming CERT class. It'll be starting on February 19th. This is a great opportunity for families, specifically the parents, to learn about everything from emergency preparedness, disaster awareness, first aid, fire suppression. We literally light fires behind the fire department and let you put them out with fire extinguishers. We are doing first aid, and on the last day of class, we actually have a mock disaster where we borrow your children from you, if you let us, and we will moulage them up with fake blood, and you actually go into the building and rescue them. The kids look at you as heroes, and we are just grateful that you are training as a hero. So again, so if anyone has been thinking about taking CERT and just haven't had the time, I'm giving you a 3 months warning. February 19th, come on out, and we will get you trained to serve the community in a disaster and rescue your neighbors and hopefully me. And also, if this, I think you were saying this is your last meeting? You won't be at the next one? So I also want to thank Doug. This is, you've been on this for several terms. Thank you for sticking your neck out there. We appreciate all you've done, and we're grateful to have had you for the time we've had you, and maybe we'll see you around in the future on committees and things like that. So again, thank you. And thank you to everyone that ran, and congratulations to those that won, and for those of you that didn't, again, thank you for taking the time. I know that running a campaign is not an easy task. And it's also comes with, you have to stick your neck out there. And thank you for being willing to do that. Hopefully we'll be seeing all of you in the future as more opportunities present themselves. With that, that's everything I have.
I wish you had a little more excitement in your voice when you spoke.
Work on that, Jordan.
Can you work on that a little bit for me?
I wasn't convinced.
Mayor, I wasn't really prepared. Can I just say a couple of things? I'm so sorry. I was taken off guard. It seems like once Halloween's over, you forget about it completely. That pumpkin walk was incredible. And I haven't been for so many years because my kids have grown and gone. This was far superior to what I expected it to be and far superior to any others I've ever been to. So congratulations to the entire department, especially Cresta, for all of that work. And the regional park, just as you said, so many people excited about it. I also wanted to mention that I went to the Rustin Brothers open house, and that is a beautiful facility, and we will do well having them here in our community. And I went to the library open house, and another beautiful facility and lots of opportunities for community gathering. And Doug, I wish I'd known this was your last evening or meeting, because you have, I would have prepared some balloons to come down and some confetti to pop. But your demeanor and your reasonable nature and your, just your level head and your countenance has been a blessing to not just council, but to the entire city, whether they realize what you do or not. Most people don't recognize what goes into a position like this, and you have been a tremendous example, and I aspire to be like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I have 2 items. Let me run on those really quickly, and then I'll give some time to our manager. Just an update on Wasatch Integrated Waste. As you know, the per can fee went up by $2 in July, with the intent that a transfer station would be built, and it is now complete and not yet functioning, but it is complete. And the MRF, it's a mixed waste recycling facility that will actually recycle cardboard and aluminum and ferrous metals and other metals. Was planned to be online sometime mid-January. Because of an equipment delay coming from San Diego, it probably will not become an operating system until mid-March, Council. So that as you're talking with people about recycling, mid-March we will have something that will do that. And then, as been mentioned, the library. The library is a beautiful building. If you have